Chapter 8. Mastery Over Death. "Dead Yogi Still Lives," read the headlines in Los Angeles papers, in reporting the passing of Paramhansa Yogananda, founder of the Self-Realization Fellowship in Los Angeles, California. Mortuary technicians today revealed the amazing story of Paramhansa Yogananda as his body lay in state at Self-Realization headquarters here. They say his body is still not technically dead 20 days after his death. The mortuary director of the cemetery declared that the body of Yogananda, who died during a speech at the Biltmore Hotel, was under daily observation by his staff from March 7th to March 27th, when the bronze casket was sealed. The absence of any vital signs of decay in the dead body of Paramhansa Yogananda offers the most extraordinary case in our experience, said the mortuary director in a notarized statement to Self-Realization Fellowship. Now, in reference to Yogananda's body, that was not a miracle. We have seen bodies that have been lying in suspended animation, it has been claimed, for 600 years. My great-great-grandfather observed such a body a long time ago. That is just north of the line between Kashmir and the Pakistan of today, and it has been there ever since. That body, of course, was laid down as a sign of displeasure aroused in India, first by the Mohammedan invasion, then child marriage, and also the deep caste system that invaded India. It has lain there ever since. It is about 14 years since I last saw the body. Also, I was in the vicinity during the First World War. At that time, there were about 200 British soldiers trapped in the mountains north of this place, and they asked for safe transportation through this country. And as they came out into India again, they observed this body. The captain had spent a great many years in India and had a great respect for the Hindu people, and they also respected him. He explained to his soldiers that, if they wished to observe this body, the company would halt here to see it, but they must give their word of honor that they would not attempt to touch the body, thus conforming to the wish of the people in that community. So many people have gone to view that body that the flagstones that lie around the canopy where the body is lying are worn through. After the soldiers had seen the body, they moved on a short distance and made their camp for the night. After the camp was ready, one of the sergeants asked the captains for leave. I had this directly from the captain. He said to the sergeant, "I believe I know what you wish to do. You are going to attempt to touch that body. Now, unless you give me your word of honor that you will not attempt to touch it, I will refuse you the leave." The sergeant gave his word. He got his leave and went up to observe the body. At that time, the officers carried what is known as a little quirt. He walked up to the body and attempted to touch it with that quirt, and he fell dead. The captain told me I was the first one to be notified, and of course, my first thought was that someone was watching and had shot the man in revenge. But the captain said he went there immediately and made a thorough examination of the soldier's body, and there wasn't a mark on it. This experience was reported to the War Department in London and is on file there today. In our laboratory, we have made experiments with the condition called death. The tests have not been our own developments, but have been carried out by a camera taking thousands of exposures a second. An image is imposed upon a running point of light. When photographed, the film records an assembly of points of light from which we get the completed image. This is then reproduced under high magnification and slowed down until it can be thrown on an ordinary screen. It can then be X-rayed, showing the complete formation of a life element. Many have come to us with a malady where they knew they had only a few more hours to live, volunteering themselves for observation. A physician in charge observes the time when what is ordinarily described as death takes place. A scale records a loss in weight of about 11 ounces. The light emanation from the body is shown just above the scale. Today we know the life element has intelligence, movement, and volition to the extent that if we put an interference over it, it will go right up through the interference. It will go on up through the ceiling. We have checked this by variously placing 4 cameras. When a camera on the floor lost it, an upper one picked it up and showed that there was still evidence of the emanation of energy. We put the interference over it again and moved it to the side. The emanations went through the wall. When the camera on one side lost the emanation, the camera on the other side picked it up. We built a cone-shaped interference of aluminum, lead foil, and asbestos to fit down over the body in an attempt to prevent the life element from escaping. In 3 instances, in less than 1 minute after we had closed the interference, the body came to life. When the life returned, the body had no semblance of the disease which it had before, and it was evidently immune to that disease. We do not know why. We have a group experimenting with it now, and we look into the future when it will be shown that the reason why the life element has taken on greater energy is so that when it returns to a body, new conditions will be established. The 3 of whom I spoke all had the Black Plague. One of them now goes out to work with the Black Plague to show that he is immune. One is afraid of it, and we have not urged him to go out, yet it is 7 years since the change, and he has never contracted it again. The 3rd man has no understanding at all of what we are doing, so that he is of no help. Before this life element leaves the body, we can show that the vibrations are so lowered that the life element cannot remain. It is crowded out completely. But when it is crowded out, it has this volition that has been created with it, and it begins to assimilate energy. Thus, in a very short time, it can assume a new body under any conditions. We cannot say positively that this is a fact, but we believe that many bodies are reassembled in from 1 to 3 hours after the experiment of death. In the case of the body lying in suspended animation for 600 years, it was suggested that this man was actively functioning in another body. We finally came to the place where this man was living with his supposed second body. We took his photograph and compared it with one of the body in suspended animation, and there was an exact resemblance. Again, we saw another of his bodies. In all, we found 4 different bodies. We know that many transport their bodies from place to place far more quickly than we could travel. So we arranged for 4 cameras in the hands of 4 men who could not be influenced and set them so that they could take photographs at exactly the same time. When we brought these photographs together, there was an identical resemblance between all 4 and the body lying in suspended animation. They were the same pattern. We have been told thousands of times that bodies are reassembled, and if a person lives a definite life, when that condition of death comes about, he can lay one body down and assemble a new one instantly. Thus, we see why we should think differently of passing through death. It is a condition that we have brought upon ourselves so that we may pass into a greater condition with greater possibilities. Jesus often told us that we become that which we worship. If we find ourselves in limitation, we have worshipped limitation. Yet there isn't a human being who cannot worship perfection, and by that attitude bring himself out of limitation. It is said today that the human body can resist any condition. If we stand with thought directing the God principle, we bring into play the power that surrounds us and so consolidate it that nothing can touch us. Perfection is always in existence, is always active, and when we stand one with it, it operates instantly. In many instances, we see the very light emanating from the person's body, and when photographs are taken, the light can be seen in the pictures. Light is life, or that medium in which life exists. It is quite evident that if, instead of placing old age as the goal, as we do, we place youth there and stepped forward in a determined positive attitude, we would accomplish that state. Men and women today are achieving eternal youth. Many Eastern philosophers say if you would worship youth, beauty, purity, and perfection as definitely as you worshipped old age, you would accomplish that condition. In fact, you could not do otherwise. This is not by any means to decry old age, but it is to slow the attitude of thought that brings it on. Would it not be better to reverence men for their youth, beauty, and measure of perfection they express rather than for old age? The very ideal belongs to a body widely accepted as created in the image of its maker. The divinity that man accepts as belonging to him reaches its highest expression in youth, beauty, and purity. We project conditions for ourselves to follow. We all admit that we can use it with the wrong attitude. But if we work toward perfection, perfection must result. No one accomplishes anything unless he becomes one with the object, forgetting all other conditions, bringing it down to a very simple fact. If we state definite, positive ideas for ourselves to accomplish, then we do accomplish those very conditions readily. One point. One direction. Never allow the thought to vary for an instant to any negative condition. We have seen many changes and healings, positive conditions brought out of negative surroundings without a word being spoken. This has been evidence to us that the principle does manifest with every attitude of positive thought. But the thoughts must always be conclusively positive. Those who have developed the power to accomplish these things at will, we know as masters, because they have mastered the forces of nature. They do not deal with conditions as if perfection were a rare phenomenon. Perfection is a natural state which must be attained by following natural conclusions. Always. This body is indestructible. We ourselves allow this body to be destroyed. The very thoughts and feelings we oppose on the body are the creators of age, disease, and disintegration. It is well known today that every cell in our bodies is renewed in less than a year. One of the greatest fallacies ever imposed upon humanity is the 70 years and 10. We know men and women who are over 2,000 years old. Now, if one can live 2,000 years, he can live for eternity. That is exactly what Jesus meant when he said, "The last enemy to be overcome is death." Jesus taught that the Father is the principle by which humanity might accomplish. That life must live. That life is no mystery in his deeds and teachings. Principle cannot change. You can overlook it for eternity if you will, but the moment you return to it, you will return to perfect condition. Your body takes on the result of that determination. One knowing and using that principle would not hesitate to walk upon the water. You have often been told that if one endeavors to accomplish and succeeds, all can. The power has always existed and always will exist. Why is it kept away? Because we put up the barrier of disbelief. The power that brings into existence a mechanical device could instantly bring into being the condition that device produces. We talk across great distances with the telephone. There are many people, however, who talk over great distances without any device whatever. Telepathy is recognized as an established fact. There is great power contained in mental telepathy. It is God speaking to God. There are many who may say such a statement is sacrilegious. Such a statement is just as definite as the statement that we are living today. Humanity must ultimately learn that it is far better to live in positive influences at all times. Then we will take the great step forward. These are not conclusions of our group alone. Many people and groups are working along the same lines. Use of these facts will bring us into complete harmony, complete unity, where man has accomplished. Now, it does not make any difference whether the body of humanity believes these things today. The facts are evident. When Jesus said he had overcome death, he spoke truly. Thousands upon thousands today, seeing the truth, will know that this body is immortal, pure, perfect, and indestructible. The mystery is gone, and we are on the threshold of complete understanding.